Hey guys, this is Brian with Prokashi.com back in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Today's video is going to be on fermented plant juice. Hey guys, Korean natural farming has a lot of inputs that we make ourselves, and one of them is called fermented plant juice. Fermented plant juice is when we go out and walk through nature and we find some plant that has certain qualities that we want to harvest using the fermentation process that we've been using for all of our other materials. And some of those qualities may be medicinal. You may, through your own knowledge, study, or research, want a plant that has certain characteristics. It may have certain things like minerals, trace minerals. Maybe you want a plant that's high in calcium that you can use as a plant food, and you want to harvest it and make fermented plant juice out of. Perhaps you want one that's high in silica, one that's high in chromium, iron, whatever. Or you may just want to go out and find a plant that is fast, vigorous, strong. It grows really well. And nature's always talking to us in one way, shape, or form. So what I like to do is I'll go out when I make a fermented plant juice and I'll just go take a nature walk. And in this case, I'm out close to where the house is. And as I go along, I'll look and see what I have around and what's available. And some of the things that I know that we do have is the kudzu vine. This here is the dreaded kudzu vine. This vine is a legume. It was brought to the U.S. from Japan as a ground cover in the 1900s. And what we didn't realize then is it doesn't have any natural predators here. It grows very vigorously. It is full of vitamins, full of growth hormones. This plant itself can stretch its tendrils out and grow well over a foot a day. And it has been known to make houses disappear, telephone poles disappear, and cross roadways. Some of the other things you may find is like a fennel or a fern of some sort. And in my walk today, one plant that I have no idea what it is that I'm going to use is this one right here. Now I can't tell you anything about this plant, but I can tell you this. It is growing in some good soil. The soil where I'm at, it's coming down a hill. You've got a lot of water that comes and sheds this way, so it brings a lot of nutrients and things like that, and it soaks down into the ground. It's tall, it's strong, and it has a lot of nice tips. What we want for fermented plant juice is the tip. If you look at a standard plant, we'll just take this one for instance, as you come near the bottom, you have the oldest leaves, and they're a little bit yellow. They're kind of dying out, chewed on a little bit. And as you come up a little bit higher, you get leaves that are younger, stronger, nice dark green. You have a lot of photosynthesis going on. But what I want is this one right here at the very tip. And the reason for that is that when a plant is growing, the tips here, as you can see, they're not open. They don't have dark green material like this leaf here. They cannot photosynthesize. So the plant has had to take all of its energies from down in the root area, send it all the way up through this stalk right here, and it has invested all of its energies, all of its nutrients, all of its vitamins, all of its enzymes, everything, the natural growth hormones, the natural growth promotants. It has invested everything right in here. And what I want to do is I want to harvest this and put it to use in my garden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fermentation process to harvest what is inside the tips of this plant right here. And the reason for that is this. We use fermentation because it is a cold process. It preserves a lot of the biology. It preserves a lot of the aminos, the enzymes, things like that. When you use a hot process or a chemical process, a lot of that gets killed or denatured. And when it's denatured, that means that it's broken from some natural form that we really can't use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use brown sugar, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And what I'm going to do is harvest these, and the best time to harvest these guys is in the early morning. Just like human beings, plants grow at night, and At night, they pull up everything from the roots and they put it up through the stalk and they invest it in the very tip of the plant. So what'll happen is, at night, the plant's pores will open up just like we have skin and pores. The plants have skin and pores, and it'll go ahead and it'll send all of those growth hormones and all those promotants to the tip. During the day, or when the sun comes up like it is now, the plant will shut its pores, it will close down, it'll take all of those nutrients and everything and pull them back down into the roots. Because during the daytime, what it's trying to do is photosynthesize. It's trying to use the sunlight to make sugars and foods. And then at night, as the sun goes down, those pores open up, photosynthesis will stop, and it'll pull everything back out of the ground and try to grow. So I'm going to ideally collect these tips in the early morning. When you collect these tips, you just want to break them off somewhere around the top 6, 8, 10 inches, depends on the plant. On this one here, I'm only going to take maybe the top 5 inches right here. I want the really good strong stuff, and I'm just going to break it off. And I'm going to throw it in a bucket. I'm not going to wash it, I'm not going to rinse it, and I'm not going to soak it. What you can't see on here is that on that leaf surface, there's a lot of natural bacteria, a lot of natural yeasts, fungi. They're all beneficial, and if I rinse them off, or if I decide to soak them in water, I remove them, and I want to use those to help with the fermentation process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and you can see it's a whole big field of it right in front of us, and I'm going to take a couple minutes and start going through here. I've brought my bucket with me, and I'm going to come through and I'm going to start picking the tips. That tip is what I want. That's where everything is, all the growth is, that's where all the energy of the plant is. The highest energy of the plant is usually in the seed, then in the flower, and before the flowering stage, in the growing tip. So since it's not flowering, doesn't have any seeds, I'm going to use that growing tip, and I'm going to turn that into a fermented plant juice, and I'll show you how to do that shortly. So give me a few minutes, let me get a bucket full, and we'll be right back. Alright guys, while I'm still picking all this out here, I just wanted to bring up a few little things. Like I said, pick off the top portions of the plant. You want the growing tips. And when you do this, don't mix your plants. If you're going to make fermented plant juice, pick one plant at a time. Try not to take 2 or 3 different plants. What you're trying to do is get all the essence of one. So if you're going to pick nettles, pick nettles. If you're going to pick chickweed, pick chickweed. If you're going to pick, what is it, the kudzu, God help you, that's a lot of kudzu. Just pick kudzu. Again, I'm doing this in the afternoon because I just haven't had the opportunity to go get my stuff in the morning. But ideally, you want to pick this up in the morning because that's when all the plant's growth hormones are up top at the plant. And just go out and get all the stuff you can. If you don't have a walking trail or anything where you can find something natural, go to your yard. Dandelions, I know everybody has dandelions and those little plantain weeds in their yards. Those are medicinal plants, believe it or not. We call them weeds, but they're very medicinal. So in the instance of a dandelion, if you've ever pulled one up, you notice that it has a long taproot. And that taproot tells you that that is going deep down into the soil, and deep down into the soil means it's pulling minerals up. So if I were to look around just my yard or my apartment complex, I could just do Korean natural farming. I don't need to go out into the woods to do this. I would get my dandelions, or I would get my plantains and start pulling them up, and they'll be thankful for you to pull them. Everybody thinks they're a weed, and they are, but they're beneficial. Again, nature is talking to us all the time if we will sit and listen. Coming through here, here's the kudzu vine I was telling you about. And you could harvest this. I'm not going to. There's a man in Alabama, his name's Mr. Charles Wilbur. Yes, I hope I didn't butcher his name. Mr. Charles Wilbur. And he has a book out that I'm going to read, and I would like to meet the man. He's in his 90s, so I guess I better hurry up. How to Grow World Record Tomatoes. And that man actually, as part of his regimen for growing Guinness Book of World Record tomatoes in height and in quantity produced, made compost out of kudzu, this vine you see right here. I don't know how he did it. I can imagine, but putting it to a Korean natural farming aspect, if we wanted to, we could sit there and harvest the kudzu leaves and do the same process. You can use just about anything. Like I said, in the wintertime, you can make fermented plant juice that's season specific. Find yourself a fast growing plant that's in the wintertime. That tells you that it can survive cold conditions. If you don't have any of that, you can, if you don't have a yard or whatnot, you can always go and in your garden, when you're trimming your plants, you can always take trimmings off of things that grow fast. Melons, you can use cucumbers, you can use tomatoes, and you can use plant-specific fermented plant juices, for instance, tomatoes. If you take the tomato leaves and you harvest them off your tomato plants, you can use the same process we're about to use and make a fermented plant juice specifically for your tomato plant, and it will love it. The neat thing about this is that it's not a fertilizer, it's a whole food. We're going to use natural sugar to cause a fermentation process. We're going to use osmosis or osmotic pressure. The sugar that we use has less moisture in it than the inside of this plant, and what we're going to do is the inside of the plant, when it comes in contact with the sugar here, is actually going to leak out through the cell wall, and as it leaks out through the cell wall, it's going to pull with it all these nutrients, all these enzymes, minerals, vitamins, everything that we want, all these growth things that we want, it's going to bring out with it. And as we let it set, as you know, when you have sugar and you have natural yeast and stuff like that, you have a fermentation, and once the sugar gets used up, it becomes slightly alcoholic. Now, there's a couple things in the plant that are water soluble, and then there's a couple things in the plant that are not, that we may want. So as we allow the fermentation process to go on a little bit, that alcohol, or that very weak alcohol, is going to actually pull more of the non-water soluble goodies out of the tips of this plant. So we're really making not only an extract, we're making a sort of a tincture, if you will, as we allow the process to go on. So I've got a little bit in the bucket here. Give me a few more minutes and then I'll collect the rest and I'll show you how to process it from there. Alright guys, I'm back at the house. I've taken the leaves and the tip cuttings that I got from the little nature walk and brought them back to the house and collected a few other things. What we're going to need is obviously our green material. We're going to need a little container or something that we can do some mixing in. We're going to need the brown sugar, which I have here, and then we're going to use this container to do the fermentation in. Traditional method says that you would use a clay container, and it is a very fine container to use. The clay is breathable, it has good air circulation, and it keeps rapid changes from happening because of the thickness of the material. It holds a good steady temperature, but I don't have those, so I'm going to use what I do have. So what I did is I weighed out my green material, and that's actually 1 kilo or 2 pounds of green material, and I'm going to take 1 pound or 1/2 of the weight of this material and put it or mix it with the brown sugar. A traditional technique to doing this is to take your container and put a layer of sugar in the bottom, take your leaves and then put them in the container, pack them down, and then put a layer of sugar on top. And as you have sugar, green, and you continue that lasagna layering technique to the top, you would put a cap, maybe a 1/2 inch or 1 inch cap of sugar on the top, and you would weight that down. The purpose of doing that is, number one, make sure you have all your materials sandwiched between the brown sugar. So you have sugar on the bottom, sugar on the top. The cap of the sugar on top is kind of like an air excluding cap. The weight that you would put a large stone or some type of weighted material on there for about a half a day to a day. And what that does is it compacts or presses down all of your material as it begins to ferment, and as the stiffness of the leaves, the turgor pressure of the leaves starts to loosen, it'll compact down, and you're getting all of the air space out from in between. Also, if the sugar is not in good contact with the leaf, you're not going to have fermentation. What I'm going to do is the alternate to that technique. There's a mixing technique you can use, and Mr. Eric Weinert of the Hawaiian Natural Farming people, he's a smart dude. He uses a nice technique I'm going to show you today. Rather than do a layer of sugar, green material, layer of sugar, and do the lasagna, we're going to actually just mix it together. The term he would use is the Hawaiian term to lomi, to massage, or to gently knead it together. So give me just a minute. I'm going to put some gloves on, and we're going to go through the process, and I'll show you how it's done. Okay guys, what I'm going to do, like I said, I have 1 kilo or 2 pounds of this material here. I'm going to put in half by weight the amount of brown sugar, so 2 pounds here, 1 pound here. What I'm going to do is just thoroughly mix this sugar in there. And at first you're going to notice that it just kind of falls on there. It really doesn't do much. But as you go along, you're going to start massaging the sugar in there, and it's going to be a few minutes of a process while I do this with you. And you'll notice that the sugar will start to break down and get gooey. And what we're trying to do is coat the entire surface here with the sugar, and you can see already some of the moisture is coming out of the plants. So this is just the labor intensive part of the process. Sit there, massage it in, and get it all over the material. The interesting thing about doing this is the biology. On about a square inch of these leaves here, you can have anywhere of 100,000, maybe 150,000 beneficial microorganisms. You'll have naturally occurring lactobacillus, the stuff that we made in one of our other videos. You'll have naturally occurring yeasts, and we're going to actually use those with this sugar to cause our fermentation. If you remember, lacto is a good digester. Yeasts break down woody stuff, the long chain carbons, they break those down, and they also actually add vitamin B12. All the B vitamins are provided by yeasts. So already, just by adding a little bit of sugar to our material, our plant material here, I'm waking up and feeding the natural fungi, the natural yeast, the natural bacterias on here. As you notice, it went from being very stiff to looking like a little bit of a limp salad. And I'm going to keep going, and you can see the sugar is starting to get jellied a little bit. And that's what you want. You want to work this in. You want everything to be well coated, and just keep going with it. If it takes 3-5 minutes, then it takes 3 to 5 minutes to do this. Again, the original technique was to put some brown sugar in the bottom and then layer this stuff on top and put a little sugar. And you can see that this technique is a little bit better in the fact that everything gets covered. All of the plant material gets well worked. We're actually helping break down a little bit of the plant material, and you can see the surface is getting wet right there. So that little bit of moisture is going to help us really kick off and start this process here. So like I said earlier, when you do this, you want to use just one plant material. So if you're using bamboo shoot and mugwort and say kudzu or arrowroot or whatever, you're going to do this one for each. Don't mix them. Find yourself a good plant that serves your purpose. If you need calcium in the soil, do this with a high calcium material like your cruciferous, your broccoli leaves, your cauliflower leaves. If you want potassium, use your banana leaves. You can use whatever you want. If you want just a good all-around, use comfrey, knit bone. That stuff is awesome stuff. It's an awesome material with which to make this. And as I keep massaging and breaking it up and mixing it up, you can see it's getting wet. And eventually we're going to get to the point where we can probably get some moisture out of it. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this mixture here and I'm going to put it in my container. Now you notice this container here has a smaller opening than the bottom. You can see how it necks down. I like to use something like this because if you use a container that's as big on the top as here, when you pack this in there, you cover it over with a cloth, anything that's breathable but keeps any of the insects or anything out. If you've got a smaller opening, that allows for the air to pass through, but it doesn't allow for a lot of evaporation of your juice, your fermented plant juice. So I actually like to use a container with a smaller lid on it, or a smaller opening, just so that I can preserve my my plant juice, but still give it the air and the circulation that it needs. When you do this, there's certain plants that you may use your 50-50, or I'm sorry, your 50% sugar mix to. So 2 pounds of plant, 1 pound of sugar. If you have a plant that is really wet, you may have to use more sugar. What you're trying to do is build up the osmotic pressure. The sugar is dry, the plant has moisture inside, and we're trying to get that moisture to cross out of the plant cell and into the sugar to give us the juices that we want. And certain plants that are very moist, have maybe a sap or a little bit liquidy, they'll need a little bit more sugar to make this happen. The Sunshine Chicken Farms in the Philippines, they have a really cool video on YouTube, and they show how they do it, and they use molasses instead of the brown sugar. And it works for them, and I guess it would work for me too. The thing is that sugar in the molasses is a liquid, and if I'm trying to use osmotic pressure, or the difference from high moisture in here to the low moisture outside for the sugar, I don't see how that's really going to help me pull stuff across that cell membrane, because the molasses is a liquid. So I'm not really setting up a big difference when I use that. If I use the liquid molasses and I'm looking for liquid in here, where's the pressure difference? So me personally, I'll just stick with the old tried and true of the brown sugar. Not to say that their process doesn't work. It works very well. They're very successful. But just for me in this demonstration, I'm going to use the brown sugar. And you can see it's getting liquidy. It's breaking down. Starting to see a little bit of moisture. Now, like I said, what we're going to do is pack our container. So I'm going to take it, force it in. Ideally, you want enough material to fill 2/3 of this container. This is a half-gallon container. It's rather big, so I don't think that I'm going to have quite enough to show you the classical technique where you want your plant material to be at 2/3 the container size, but it'll work just the same. What I'm doing is I'm just packing it down in there. To do that, I am taking out airspace. I am making sure I have good contact with the sugar and the plant material. And for this size container, I really should have had 2 kilos instead of 1, or 4 pounds instead of 2 pounds. But either way, it'll work just fine. I'm going to pack this material in here, and then I'm going to set it in a cool, dark, dry place for 7 days. In 7 days, what will happen is this material in here will break down. And as it does, the liquid will come out, and we will collect that liquid off of the bottom. When we do that, what we'll do at that time is we'll simply turn our container sideways and allow the liquid to pour out, and we'll collect that liquid. When you collect it, don't press down, just tilt your container sideways and it'll naturally drain out. It may take an hour or so for you to get it all out. Think of this material in here like olive oil. Virgin olive oil, when you get what's in that virgin olive oil, that's the first pressing. That's the very best. So when we are using this plant material and this sugar, we are looking for the first pressing. We're looking for the very best. And when we tilt it to the side and allow it to drain out and collect without pressing, that's kind of like your extra virgin olive oil. You're getting the very best that that plant has to offer you. So what I'm going to do is, just like I've done in my other videos, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to put a little paper towel across the top, and then I'm going to put a little seal or a little rubber band around the edge, and I'm going to let this set for a week. When a week's time is up, what we're going to do is we're going to collect the liquid off of here, and then we're going to take that liquid that we collected out of here and in a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I collect out 12 ounces, I'm going to mix 12 ounces of molasses to store it. So when I first put this together, I took 2 pounds of material to half a pound of brown sugar. Once this process is done, all the liquid is at the bottom. We've tilted it over, we've drained the liquid out. Then I'm going to preserve it or store it or stabilize it by taking equal parts of the drained off fermented plant juice to equal parts of sugar, and then I'm going to mix them together, and I'm going to store that in a container in a cool, dark place with the lid. You can screw the lid down on top, and then that's it. That's your fermented plant juice. Okay guys, quick review. We started out with some green plant that we wanted to make fermented plant juice out of. We wanted something that was fast growing, vigorous, that was very hardy. If you have a specific need, you would pick one that has the particular micronutrients, micro minerals, enzymes, vitamins, whatever characteristic you want, you would pick that plant. And when you pick that plant, you would like to try to pick it first thing in the morning, because the growth hormones, all of the energies and everything in the plant are in the tips of the plant in the morning, because just like humans, plants grow overnight. At nighttime, they open up their pores, they pull in the moisture from the outside air, they bring in everything from the leaf system, and then they take everything up from the roots and they bring that into the very tips, so that those tips can be made stronger to grow. Everything, all the building blocks they need, is placed into those tips. So if we pick those tips in the morning, we're harvesting that. When you harvest that, you just want to shake any dirt or debris off. You do not want to wash it, because you're going to be washing off the beneficial bacteria like the lactobacteria, the beneficial yeasts and fungi that are inhabiting the leaf surface, and we want to use those. Bring them home, and you would take your leaf material, and whatever amount of leaf material you have, you use half that amount by weight of brown sugar. So in my case, with my plant, I had 2 pounds of plant material, so I used 1 pound of brown sugar. Don't use white sugar. It doesn't have enough moisture. It's been processed and bleached. It doesn't have the micronutrients and minerals in it that brown sugar does. If you would like to use molasses, by all means go right ahead and use molasses. I personally use the brown sugar. Take your material and your brown sugar, put them together and mix them well. Massage them or loamy them, as Mr. Drake Weinert says, the Hawaiian word for massage. And then you'll notice that the sugar goes from gritty to pasty to watery, and you'll notice that the plant material will get wilted and wet looking. When you have that, you want to take a jar or a container and pack in your plant material till it's about 2/3 full. You want about a 1/3 headspace up above the surface area. The traditional technique says that you put a weight on top of it to press it down. Alternately, you can just pack it in really well. Once you do that, you take your container and you just put your cover on top, and you let it set and ferment for 7 days. If you notice already, some of the liquid is moving around inside of that container. After your 7 days, you're going to open it up, and you're probably going to see something similar to this, where you see your material and then you see some moisture. You'll notice a sweet, almost alcoholic smell, and that's because during the fermentation, the sugar, through osmotic pressure, pulls out the water. As the fermentation continues, one of the byproducts of fermentation is alcohol. So you're making a very mild alcohol solution, and that very mild alcohol solution is going to pull out the non-water soluble goodies and nutrients from the plant that we need. When you wait your 7 to 10 days, you go ahead and drain it out, and when you drain it, I'll show you, just turn it to the side and you'll notice the liquid, like here, will start coming out, and allow it to drain out. Once you drain that out, take the material, the solid material inside, and put it in a colander or a strainer of some sort and allow it to drain out even further. In Korean natural farming, nothing gets put to waste, so that green material that you're taking out, once you've pulled all your liquid out, do not throw it away. It's good fodder. You can feed it to the chickens, goats, animals, or alternatively, you can turn it into your compost pile. You can turn it into the soil. So don't waste it. You still have all those beneficials, all those microorganisms, and it still has a good value, a food value or nutritional value. So give it to the animals or give it to the compost pile. Now, the question you're going to ask, how do I use it? Excellent question. You're going to take the liquid that you've drained off. Once you drain your liquid off, you need to preserve it or stabilize it. So once you drain that liquid off and you've separated your solids, take your liquid and mix it with an equal part of molasses or brown sugar that you've added enough water to make like a syrup or a Slurpee out of. The bottom line is 1 part of the fermented plant juice to 1 part sugar, and you mix that together and put it in another container, and that is your basic serum. The reason that you add that sugar as a preservative is that you've got the microbes that are alive in there, and they're going to continue eating, so you give them a good sugar or a food source. If the sugar gets to be short or tends to go low, what you're going to do is create more alcohols in there, more organic acids, and you're basically going to make a vinegar. We don't want to make a vinegar. We want to keep it in the fermented plant juice form, so add the sugar and that stabilizes it. Once you have your 1-to-1 mixture and you have it saved, you're going to apply it to your plants as a foliar feed. You can put 1 part of the fermented plant juice to 500 parts water for the first several parts in the nutritional or the growth cycle. The first part, the nutritive part, where you're in the green growing high nitrogen part, 1 to 500. In the changeover period where your plant is going from needing high nitrogen to needing calcium, so it's in between growing and in between flowering and fruiting, you want to put 1 to 500. During your fruiting and flowering stage, 1 to 500. During the maturing stage, when your fruit is getting really mature, you can use it at about 1 part to 2,000 parts water. So basically your basic concoction is going to be 1 part or 1 ounce or 1 centiliter of fermented plant juice to 500 parts water. Make sure it's dechlorinated water, and spray your plants as a foliar. You can also feed it to the animals, the chickens, pigs, cows, at about 1 in 500 as well. So give it a try. It is a really cool material, very easy to make. You can make designer or custom fermented plant juices based on your needs. Just pick the appropriate green material, use that simple technique of 1 part plant material to half that amount of sugar. Do your 7 to 10 days fermentation. Arrest the fermentation with a 1-to-1 liquid to liquid sugar, and then you're set, guys. You have a plant food. It's not really a fertilizer, it's a plant food. You're taking out all the chlorophylls, all of the enzymes, all of the micronutrients, everything, and you're getting all of your growth promotants, all of your growth hormones, everything that's in there that made that plant tip grow, you're placing on your plant and you're allowing it to grow. So basically you're giving it an incredible shot in the arm. You're basically putting it on steroids. Natural steroids, if you will. So I hope that helped out. If you have any questions, write me, prokashi.com. Check me out on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll talk to you next time. So I hope to hear from you. Again, this is Brian. Thanks for watching.